I got out of the chair and I had never felt more beautiful, which I was not expecting. I felt I felt glorious. I felt unique. I felt powerful. I felt amazing. Sometimes we tell ourselves that I don't know, and we tell ourselves I'm so confused, when in actual fact, you know damn well what the thing is, but you're scared to do it. But something even better happened. What happened was, like, I went into this like wave, this surge of liberation. Like, it was so crazy. I just felt this sense of utter freedom, and it was intoxicating. Sometimes we make these sort of half decisions because it's easier than making a full one. Maybe that is saying I'm just going to take, a sabbatical or long service leave, when you really know that what you want to be doing is like leaving that career completely, or, saying you're going to take some, time on your own to have a week away from a relationship, when really what you're doing is leaning towards needing to make a clean break.
Hi, I'm Danielle, and I'm so glad that you're here, because together we're going to work through big stuff.
When a woman shaves her head at 50, let me tell you, people notice. The question on everybody's lips was I having a midlife crisis, or was this an act of rebellion? And I'm here to talk to you about that today on this episode of Big Stuff, where I'll be diving into how was I really the day that I decided to shave my head. Now, the truth of the matter is, it wasn't a single day's decision. I had been thinking about shaving my head since when my mum died. So when mum died, she had this incredible carer called Anurad, who was a Nepali boy, and he had lost his father a few years before. And Rod shaved the sides of his head, and he had kind of a mohawk kind of vibe. And he explained that this process was something that he did every year as a way of honoring his father. It was something that was deeply steeped in his religion. He was a Hindu, is a Hindu. And it made him look awesome also. Like, that didn't hurt. It made him look incredible. So when mum died, I actually said to him, I might shave my head. And he was like, don't do that. No, you don't need to do that. And I also talked to a couple of other people, and even went to my hairdresser one day thinking, like, I just need to get rid of my hair. And everybody talked me out of it at the time. Now, I don't think that anybody had any sort of particular agenda for that, except trying to protect the optics of that. Because a woman shaving her head has become synonymous with a term like doing a Britney, right? Which is a deeply offensive thing to say now that we have more understanding. It was offensive even if we didn't. We could see that the girl was struggling. But now that we have more of an understanding of Britney, we know that she was trying to reclaim her life. She was trying to reclaim something. So there is often this kind of thought that if a woman does this, then she is losing it. And unless she is like a really staunch, feminist, or, who else do we know? And, sometimes people just do it for looks, but we don't see it that often. And that's a fact. We really don't see women with shaved heads that often. So people were suggesting that I should not shave my head at the time of my mum doing it, because perhaps I was not feeling myself. Perhaps I was not in the best place to make a decision like this. So I do believe that there was a level of care that inspired people to talk to me like that. However, 8 months later, I was still thinking about it. I was still thinking about it. And my relationship with my hair has been, if you've been following me for a long time, you will see me with every single haircut. I've got like the fierce, blunt bob of my divorce, right? So that was my reclaiming of whatever, I've always done like big dramatic haircuts at various times of my life. I'm not particularly attached to a certain look. I love playing with styles and I love playing with hair colors, and I'm never completely happy. My hair is something that, I get tired of. I get tired of a look. I get tired of an appearance. I get tired of doing it, and I'm never completely happy. So for me, this sort of wasn't a flash, snapped decision. It was definitely more something that had been sort of on the bubble for a little while. And then if we like sort of fast forward to me being in Turkey, I was there traveling with another family. This family are the husband and wife, Sam and Carolyn, and my children's godparents. And Carolyn, a number of years ago, got alopecia universalis. We've actually done an episode on Big Stuff, so I'll make sure that I'll link that in the show notes. But when she was losing her hair, it was a really sad and traumatic experience. It was hard for her to let her hair go, hard for her to admit, and it was very painful. But now, all these years later, she rocks a skinhead, like full skin, rocks a skinhead with such style and grace. She always looks amazing. In fact, I think she looks more beautiful with no hair. And I was talking to her about this and saying, I first felt like I wanted to do it when Mum died and him talked me out of it. And, we sort of talked about how that sort of suggests that society expects, even if I was doing it in a snap of emotions or reactivity to what was going on in my life, and people suppressing that, that's even a statement on how society expects us to grieve or process through really big life moments and big life transitions, and to keep it tidy, right? To not make other people uncomfortable by doing anything like too outlandish or too left field. Now, if I think about when my father died, I quit my job and said, I'm never going to write again. I mean, we all know how that's turned out for me, but initially I was a journalist. I was writing for money every day, and I quit that cold and thought I would never write again. And nobody questioned that as a life decision, but ultimately it's a similar kind of thing. I sheared something off. I amputated this part of myself and said, I will never return to this. This doesn't fit for me anymore. So when I was talking to my dear friend Carolyn, I said to her, if you could grow your hair back, would you? And she was like, no, like this has really become part, like my identity now. And hair just seems, extraneous, but it doesn't make sense. And I started to think about that, about hair as this thing that we do, how we have so much of our identity wrapped up in it, and how we can shape and change our identity, our look, our appearance daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, depending on where we're at and how we want to rock it. And there became a certain sort of feeling for me around your ability to disguise yourself. Obviously, there is this ability for you to play in that, and it can have a real sense of fun and freedom, but there is also a real capacity to disguise. And we know sometimes people just grow their hair really, really long in order to hide themselves or to hide away. So I started to think again about shaving my head. It was my 50th birthday coming up in 2 days. If I was going to do it, I wanted it to be on that day. I wanted to mark my 50th birthday with this thing if I was going to do it. So I did feel a sense of urgency. And what happened with that was I got, I would say, a little bit obsessed with the idea. Every single reflective surface that I walked past, I started to look at my reflection and imagine myself with no hair. And I liked what I saw so much that my actual reflection, I would be like, look at that hair. That hair is so silly. That hair is so pointless. Like, what is that silly thing on your head? It was a really bizarre shift in how I was seeing myself. And so this was every single reflective surface. And I'm talking about like walking through the streets of Istanbul. I'm checking myself in every single window. Every time there was a photo taken, I'd like look back at it and be like, look at that hair. That's just strange to me all of a sudden. And then it also started happening with other women. I was looking at all these women walking around with their silly hair. I can't explain really what happened for me, except to say my little ADHD brain really hooked onto an idea and I became hyper focused on it, hyper fixated on it. And I was then unsure if this was me being hyperfixated. Is this like a neurodivergent brain thing? Or is this actually this big urge for me to do this thing? Now, it doesn't seem like it's a really big deal. My husband is bald. He shaves his head all the time, right? I know that, or I knew that if I did this thing and I didn't like it, I could grow it back. But for some reason, it felt like a very dangerous thing to do. Like it felt like a very final, dangerous, daring, risky thing to do. And it started to make me have like, I felt very uneasy inside with this. It was like, oh, I'm feeling really drawn to do this thing. And oh, I don't know if it's the right thing, which is so crazy because we do that so often in our lives. It's like, I'm going to make this decision and, oh, is it the right decision? And I get really like tense about it or anxious about it when in reality, if that decision doesn't work out, you just make another decision, right? So here I am walking around Istanbul, looking at everyone's silly hair, judging all these poor women. Not so much judging them. I was more like, wondering. I was more curious. I was fantasizing about what all of these people would look like without hair, I suppose. I was imagining all of these women with buzz cuts. I was imagining all these different faces and different face shapes and different clothing styles and how this look would look. Obviously, like I'm vain as. I am so vain. It's not like I'm rocking up here with a buzz cut, bald face, no makeup, no jewels. Like I know I am working harder now to like put a little bit of color in my cheeks or whatever so that I don't look masculine. Okay. So that was a fear of mine, that I would look masculine or I would look butch. Because that is another story that we have, only certain types of women do this, the cracked ones and the butch ones. So I also sort of had that in my head. And I suppose in some ways I still do. But the day was getting closer. It was getting closer to my birthday. And then the big day was here. I turned 50. We jumped up really early. We got on a plane and flew from Istanbul to Cappadocia. And Cappadocia is unlike anywhere I've ever been. I've done a lot of traveling in my time, and I have never been anywhere like Cappadocia. It's like another planet. It's like Star Wars. It is cave. It's living in caves. It's these desert mountains. It's very, very strange, arid terrain. And while I was there, another part of my identity, or maybe my lost identities, sort of showed up. So that young part of myself, that young, adventurous, traveling part of myself, that part of myself that had no responsibilities. It was also really hot, let me say. That definitely made me feel a little bit more like, woo, like holiday here, because I have definitely noticed the not hot. Since coming home, I come home to the dead of winter and my head is freezing. But I found myself really embodying that free, adventurous part of myself, which I have been mourning, I guess, since the sausage mincer of midlife has taken hold. It is another episode of this podcast that I will share in the show notes. But this time of life is particularly unadventurous and laden with responsibilities. It doesn't feel like freedom at all for me. So that happened. I sort of became a bit more like, I don't know, like bohemian traveling, like, awesomeness. And I also had a bit of a sad birthday. I had a bit of a sad birthday for a number of reasons. My family didn't really celebrate it the way that I hoped. And I guess there was a part of me that realized that the person who would have really celebrated me on my 50th birthday is not here anymore. And that is my mum, which ties us back into I wanted to shave my head around the death of my mum. So as I arrived in Cappadocia and I was walking around sad on my birthday, this urgency to do this thing, to mark my birthday, to do something big, to do something memorable on my birthday, like being in Cappadocia wasn't enough and going hot air ballooning the next day wasn't enough. I don't know. I have always been a bit extra. We have to face it. I'm a bit extra. So I'd asked my husband to arrange a nice dinner, and I knew that we were getting picked up in an hour. I came home and I was lying just on my bed in my cave, in my dark, musty cave. And literally, it was a cave hotel, and it was beautiful. It was great, but they are dark and musty just by their very nature, the caves. So I was lying on my bed and I was still like torn by these two parts of myself that were thinking about doing this thing. And I just thought, fuck it. Like, fuck it. What does it matter? It doesn't. And if I'm being so pulled towards this thing, stop trying to resist it. Stop worrying about the outcome. Like, give it a go. Like, who cares? Yes, it's just hair, but it wasn't even about that. It wasn't about my appearance. It was about like my physical appearance. It was about appearing like I was something, I don't know, crazy. And there was also a part of me that felt really empowered when I made the decision, when I stopped dithering, stopped being conflicted, stopped telling myself I'm conflicted and I don't know. And I think that's an interesting thing as well. Sometimes we tell ourselves that I don't know, and we tell ourselves I'm so confused, when in actual fact, you know damn well what the thing is, but you're scared to do it. So I jumped up and I said to my daughter, come with me, bring your phone, let's go. And she's like, where are we going? What are we doing? And I was like, I'm going to shave my head. And my husband was like, I got to see this. Now, I had sort of said to him that I was kind of thinking about it. And he was like, yeah, I don't know about this. And I kind of didn't really care what he thought. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. It's not his head, right? He's bald. He's been bald ever since I've known him. So, what are these beauty standards, right? So off we walked, and I sort of Googled where the nearest barber was, and it was literally a 5-minute walk. But when we got there, Google Maps was like walking us around, and I was like, oh, maybe it's not going to happen. And we got to the place and it wasn't, there was nothing there. And I asked a man at an ice cream store, and he was like, oh, yeah, he's just over there. And then suddenly I saw like this sign, the barber shop, sign. So we walked over, and I said to the young guy, he was young, I said, I'd like to get a number 1 shave, please. And he looked at my husband and he pointed to him and he said, for him? And I said, no. And my husband said, for her. And he was like, oh, okay. And I felt so excited. Like, I felt really excited. So I went in, I sat down, and he put the hairdressing gown on me. And as we were walking down, my daughter had actually said to me, are you 100% sure, Mama? Are you 100% sure that this is a good idea? And I said to her, of course not. Of course I'm not 100% sure. I cannot be 100% sure. But all I know is that this feels like something I need to do, and I need to do it now. And that's enough. If it turns out that it is not a good thing, if this is not cool, if I don't like it, I can make another decision. But right now, this is something I need to do. And she seemed a little bit emotionally wobbly, like maybe I was losing it. But I just had to do what I wanted to do. As we were leaving the hotel and I said I was going to go and shave my head, my son even said, like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Like, my friends will bully me forever. And I just said to him, I really hope that doesn't happen. But I also can't live my life for what 16-year-old boys think. I need to do my thing. And there was this real sense of fear from everyone around me doing, like, what am I doing? I'm just like having a really, really short haircut. Like, why is there all this fear around it? It was so interesting, but I felt the fear as well. It wasn't just there. I felt that fear. So I'm sitting in the barber chair and he does like the first thing. And I sat there looking at myself in the mirror and I thought, am I going to cry? Am I going to get overwhelmed with emotions? They talk about hair holding so much of our old experiences, so much of our memories. Our hair holds, our I don't know, the cells of our hair holds our history or whatever. And so I wondered if, this sort of dyed, treated, full of product thing on my head. Like, I wondered if I was going to feel like this big sense of loss or something. And there was a moment where I like, maybe I could have, like, there was a bit of a wave of emotion, and maybe I could have like really leaned into it and been like, oh my God, this is such a big deal. But something even better happened. What happened was, like, I went into this like wave, this surge of liberation. Like, it was so crazy. I just felt this sense of utter freedom, and it was intoxicating. It was like so sexy. I bloody loved it. And he left me with a skullet for a minute, and I really wish that I had the balls or had the foresight to ask him to stop there and go out for dinner with my family just for the skullet. Because that cracks me up. Like, that thought of how horrified my children would be, but everybody would be, if I rocked the skullet to dinner. Obviously, the skullets are really bad look on anyone, but on a 50-year-old woman especially. Anyway, I didn't think of it at the time. It only came to me afterwards. So this skullet was gone in the next minute, and I just remember running my hand across this sensory delight and feeling completely elated. And I got out of the chair, and I had never felt more beautiful, which I was not expecting. I felt glorious. I felt unique. I felt powerful. I felt amazing. And the barber looked at me and he just went, yeah, cool. And I was like, yeah, I'll take that, because he was really young and cute. And then my husband said, wow, you look 10 years younger. You look amazing. And it's really striking. So out we went for dinner and I rocked this hair and I felt really amazing and liberated and empowered. And that continued over the coming days. I wondered if I would wake up the next day. I've done this with tattoos. I feel really great. And then I wake up the next day and I'm like, oh my God, I've got this like thing. But I didn't. I've just woken up every day and gone, oh my God, you're amazing. I mean, seriously, I have got a perfect skull. I had no idea I was hiding under my hair for all of these years at textbook perfect skull. So that was a gamble. Of course, I could have had a flat head, a cone head, anything could have been going on under there, but really just by a sheer chance, this skull is pretty fine under there. So I also wasn't sure if it would be this thing where I just did it and then just began to grow it back. I know a number of people have done that. I've seen a few people do that. They shave it, that was the moment, and then they grow it back immediately. And I wasn't sure, but the way that I'm seeing it now is like I feel like this is a chapter as opposed to a moment. This is the buzz cut chapter. And a part of me is really curious about what it would look like if I bleached it, if I colored it, if I did all sorts of different things to it. But the other side of that coin is I've been leaning back into the labor of hair, the silliness of hair still hasn't faded yet. And allowing myself to fall back into the labor of hair, even though, it's considerably cheaper and faster and easier to do a home bleach or whatever myself. I'm buzzing it myself now, which is great. And I'm spending, hundreds of dollars every couple of months, like many hundreds of dollars every couple of months. And then there is the time and all that sort of stuff. The other thing that I have found to be really liberating is when I'm in the shower, I can just stick my head under. There's always so much time, like don't get your hair wet, you've just done it, you don't want to get it moist, whatever. Also swimming in the ocean. I started to do that mum thing where I'd pile my hair up or pull it up, and if I'd already done it recently, it's like, oh, I don't want to get it wet, I'll have to do it, I've just blow dried it, I don't have to, it's all of that like bullshit. And so when I was over in Fethiye, there I was, swimming in the turquoise Mediterranean, just putting my head under as much as I wanted and just being like, oh my God, I can do this every single day as many times as I want and not have to worry about doing my hair to go for dinner or all that sort of stuff. And I know not everybody is obsessed with their hair and not everybody sort of thinks about that, but I would hazard a guess that a large proportion of women do think about that. Do think about how recently they've styled their hair or how their hair is going to look after they do this thing, like go swimming or, get caught in the rain or go for a massage and get the oil in their hair, things like that. So, yeah, that's just stuff that I don't have to consider anymore. Has it lightened my mental load by a huge amount? Fuck, I wish I could say yes, but like not really. But it's lightened one part of my load, I suppose. I'll fill it up with something else to worry about, I'm sure. Oh God, it's funny because it's true. I am going to keep this for a bit. I am really enjoying it. I am obsessed with touching it and really enjoying the feel of my head. But it does remind me of these big moments, these big pulls, these big yearnings that we talk ourselves out of. Other people talk ourselves out of. I wonder where else we do these things in our lives. Or perhaps similarly to me, sort of shaving it and not knowing if it was a permanent thing or a temporary thing, because it's easier to say, I'll just try this, and there's no skin in the game, if you will. Sometimes we make these sort of half decisions because it's easier than making a full one. Maybe that is saying, I'm just going to take a sabbatical or long service leave, when you really know that what you want to be doing is like leaving that career completely. Or, saying you're going to take some, time on your own to have a week away from a relationship, when really what you're doing is leaning towards needing to make a clean break. I invite you to just really lean in to those yearnings, whatever they are, and to trust that sometimes when you think you're really confused about something, you're not confused, you're just in denial and scared. And on that note, I'd like to thank you for coming to my buzz cut TED Talk. I'm just going to sign out and rub my head, because man, it really is amazing. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you again soon. I hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode of Big Stuff as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. Now, if you did enjoy this episode, it would really help me if you wanted to share it with just one person that you think is going to get something out of it. And also feel free to drop a comment. All of these things really help podcasts to gain more ears, and that's what we're really here for. Also, be sure to subscribe, then you will never miss an episode. If you want to find out more about me, who I am, what I do, then you can go and check me out at daniellecolley.com.au. I'll see you next episode for more big stuff.